Hi, this is Everetts Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom, and you're tuned in to Simply Drawing with Everett. And I'm broadcasting today live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. So welcome aboard. If it's your first time in here, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up during the broadcast. And I've got the broadcasting live, and I'm here in the studio with my wife Gloria.
Welcome everyone.
And she'll be monitoring the broadcast and also checking the chat room for me. The chat room is live, so if you have questions or comments, you can put them on the chat room there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay. So tonight, what I'm going to do is a little drawing show here, a little drawing demonstration. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on negative and positive spaces. And everything in a drawing is important. Negative space is important, and also positive space. We're going to go over a little bit more with that tonight, just give you a demonstration of what I mean by that. So let's go to my close-up camera, and I'll show you what I'm going to talk about. Well, tonight's subject is a tree. And you can see this great big old tree I have here, beautiful. I took a picture of this over the past weekend. And I'm going to show you how we can draw that. And also look at the positive and negative shapes of that particular tree. So what I'm going to do, first of all, just like anything else, I start with a draw. I get a size. I do a size. I'll take a pencil, and let's take a look at the pencil length is about the width, one pencil width, and I look at the height. And up to this point here, it's about so it's basically the same height and width as far as getting the pencil. So what I can do is take a piece of paper, what I have here, and I can kind of scale it out. So if I got the paper here, if I got a pencil width across this way, and I get a pencil width, at least I get an idea how much space I need on the paper. That's the first thing you do is get, how you get this large object like a big tree. The first thing you have to decide is how big you're going to make it, how big of a piece of paper do you need, and then you start laying it out. Okay, so the first thing I do when I lay out a subject like this is I start drawing an outline, and I start here basically with the trunk, and I'll start with a base down here, start down here at the bottom here of this piece of paper, and I usually start with a rough sketch, and I'm going to go in with some darker pencil works here pretty soon, but I start with the trunk. And then I'm going to go here, I'm going to start with the right side here. I go off at an angle. I use a little bit of contour drawing here because I'm going to draw this shape here. So I get the shape of the direction of this branch here. And there's another branch on this one. I'll say the first one and the second one going inside. I kind of get that located next here to this one. And then the main trunk is down here. And it goes right up the center, and it kind of curves a little bit, to the left. So I can kind of get that in. And before I get there, about this far up, there's a little another branch that comes off this way, so I'll make a little mark for that. And then going up here, so I got that one. I kind of got that planned in. All right, I got the 1, 2, 3, and I got 4 with another branch off here. Then the last one is over here to the left. And I'll take a look. I go back to the trunk again, and I see it's on this side, and I look at the shape of that one. It goes out here like this, and it has a branch. It goes up here. It branches off. So okay, so I got the general idea. Then I'll fill in the foliage here in a second. So let's go ahead and take a pen now. I'm going to go ahead and start marking in some of this shape. So I've got a Sharpie pen. And I'm going to start marking in some of this. So I'm going to start with the trunk down here. I'll go off to the left side here. Okay, and I'm going to take that up. This part of the trunk goes about, not quite halfway, but it goes about that far right there. Okay, now the other side of the trunk, I take a look at the shape and I see, go up this way. And it's going to come down. Now, the base of a tree, it's always interesting. The base of a tree is always wider at the base. That's where the roots are. Okay, now I got this branch here off to the right. So I'm going to put that in. Right, and the branches, now you compare it with the trunk is this wide, so the branches have to be much thinner than the trunk. So you look at the comparative spaces or comparative sizes, and you make the branches less than the trunk width. Okay, now this branch here goes off to the right a little bit, so I'm going to put that in. It's a smaller branch. It goes off to from this larger branch, and this one continues on up here to the top. And this one here also branches off here. It branches off to another smaller branch on the side. So I'll get that in. And this one here continues up a little bit more. Go about like that. Okay. So I got those two branches in. This branch here, the second one in goes in, and it branches up a little bit, and then it goes off. Now the center part of the trunk splits up here and it goes up straight. This is the longest branch in the whole tree, this one here. And it branches off here. I made a little mark about where that was. Again, I was estimating this when I went with my pencil. And this one kind of veers off to the right, to the left, my left. And then that branch is going to be about that size. It's about the same size as this one right here, width-wise. So that's a very similar branch width, and it curves up about right there. Okay. Now we got one more branch to put in. This one over here on the left, and it curves up. So I can take a look at that, and I do a little contour drawing of that. It kind of curves. And then this one here goes off to the right. So I got this two branches in. This one over here on the left, and it curves up. So I can take a look at that, and I do a little contour drawing of that. It kind of curves. And then this one here goes off to the right. So I can take a look at that, and I do a little contour drawing of that. It kind of curves. can get the other side of it. And the size is about, it's a little less than this branch here, width-wise. But it's a long branch. It goes way out here. And it branches off. It goes up, it branches off, it breaks off into two branches. There's one this way. Now, I'm following the diagram in the photograph. And then this, I'm going to turn the paper just a little bit. This branch here kind of curves. It curves around just a little bit here. It curves a little bit. So that's a small branch off there. Okay. So let me give you a close-up of the photograph. You can see here what I tried to capture was I got this branch over here on the right, and I got the second branch went inside, branches off. Then I got the main branch up the center, and then this other branch that moves off to the left. And it's split up into two branches. There's one here and one there. Okay. All right. So I've got the main section of the branches. Now what I want to do is kind of decide. Now I'm not going to draw every leaf that's in here. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to go and I'm going to put what I call dotted lines around the perimeter of this particular. So I'm going to do little dots and dashes here to show me where I'm going to put the foliage. So I'm kind of putting in little dots and dashes here, following the contour now of the shape. Now this tall branch here kind of it comes over here and it kind of does a little turn. And then I'm not going to get this part up here right now. This part I'm going to leave alone. I'm going to stop right here at this point right here. And I'm going to come down. It's going to curve in a little bit. And I'm right here now on the contour of the branches. I'm up on the foliage. It comes around here, and it's going to come down. And you can see a little bit of it goes out here. I'm going to take it out there, and I'm going to come back in. And this comes down. There's a little gap in here. So again, I'm not leaving all the little leaves to worry about. I'm just going to I'm trying to get the outline of this. And I think what I'll do is come in here and just do a little curve like that. Now, the inside, same idea. I'm not going to capture everything, but I'm going to get the major parts, or the major shape of that foliage. And I'll leave a little bit here to finish up when I do a little shading in. And this part here drops down, so I'll simplify that a little bit by coming down here like this. All right, so what I've done now so far is I made a contour line of the branches, of the leaves. Okay, now before I start shading, I'm going to shade this in a little bit too. I got some background stuff here to work on. I'm going to simplify the building here. So all I'm going to do is just put in a simple, I'm going to turn my paper just a little bit. I'm going to simplify this building here. I'm going to put a building over here and simplify it quite a bit. I don't need all of that in my drawing. Just enough to indicate that there's a structure here. Okay, and then I'll leave that. Let's see. I'll leave that alone for right now. Okay, and this part over here. And it's going to have, I'm going to put a doorway here. I'm going to draw this wall here. Okay. Now I'm going to put a couple windows. And I'm going to add a fence line over here. Now there's some, in the photograph here, I've got some structure here. So I'm going to I'm going to make this into a fence line. So I'm drawing in a fence line in this particular drawing. Okay, and then there's an edge across here that's on, say, the base at the bottom. In the front of this, there's some grass in front of this particular building, and there's in the drawing you can see it's a waterway, but there's really a bulkhead here. So I'm just going to draw this in and just kind of rough this in. It's not important. I'm just going to add it to my drawing, just for a little bit of interest. And I'm going to simplify it also. There are some parts of this bulkhead are structure pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those in. This is the bulkhead that goes along the edge of the waterway. And then there's some water here, which it's not really that important. And then this is the edge of the grass. Edge of the grass along here by the tree. Okay. All right. Now also there's some trees in the background, so I'm going to add some trees and shrubbery or whatever here, just to give a little more interest. Again, I'm simplifying that also, but there's trees in the background. I'm going to add those in to give me to make my drawing make them a little more complete. Okay. So there's the drawing complete. Now I'm going to go start shading it in now. I've got the tree, got the foliage, I've got a little bit of background information here. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in I got the overall shapes and spaces. Now I'm going to decide my positive space and my, I'm going to put the foliage in as a positive space. Now what do I mean by that? I'm going to go ahead and put that in, and I'm going to use the pencil, and I'm shading this in. And I'm going to leave the branches up here as negative space. I'm not going to shade those in. So I'm really right now I'm just filling in the positive space. So I'm shading in the foliage as positive space, and I'm leaving the branches as negative space. When we talked about in the very beginning, I said we're going to talk about positive and negative space. So this drawing is just going to have a little bit of information about this particular subject, and we're going to draw it a little bit different than what the photograph looks like. But our interpretation is we want to learn more about positive and negative space, and also I'm using a Sharpie here to do a little what I call pen and ink type drawing, which is also interesting. This is another drawing exercise with a different instrument. You can use a felt tip pen. You can use this happens to be a Sharpie. You can use a ballpoint pen. Doesn't matter what you use. Anything that has ink in it. I'm using a black ink. I think the black ink is much easier to start with. You could also use colored ink if you wanted to. But this is not a coloring exercise. This is a drawing exercise using a black and white drawing, and I'm shading in the positive space, which is in my interpretation, the positive space is right here. In this case, is going to be the foliage on the tree. So I'm shading in the positive space, and the negative space is the branches. I'm leaving those white. So thinking about positive and negative space, and that's how we recognize things. When we're looking at things, there's going to be lights and darks. There's going to be positive and negative shapes, and the sky itself is a negative shape because it's out there behind. It's all that space behind the tree, behind the foliage is the sky. That's all negative. That's all negative space, but it's also important. And the size of that space and how you draw that in, or how you represent that, is very important. I'm not going to put any clouds in the sky, but you could add clouds and other elements in the drawing, or in the whatever you're doing. A piece of art could be a painting, could be a drawing, could be a sketch. So I'm doing this very quickly, but basically you get the idea here. Is I'm putting in I'm blacking in the positive space which is the foliage on this tree. And I'm roughing in right now the basic shape that I see, and I'm leaving the branches white, and that makes them stand out. It defines them very well. If you were drawing this with colored pencil or something, you might put a different color in here, but I'm using this as a black and white, and I'm showing the branches as a different color, black versus white. So I'm identifying the branches as a negative space in this case here. Now I could have done it the opposite way. I could have made the branches positive and made the foliage negative. That could have been my choice. That's the choice of the artist. The artist can do it. You can do it both ways. You might want to do it the other way. You might want to leave the foliage blank or white, and color in the branches would make those dark. So that's another way to look at this same scene. You can do it several ways that way. Okay, now that can be darkened in a lot more, but I just got the rough edges there that I wanted to show. Now let's go down here to the what I want to do now is that I'm going to put in I'm going to use the space behind the trunk now. I'm putting the branches in. Now the branches are going to have positive. I'm going to paint this part here as a positive shape. Now the negative shape is a sky behind the trunk or the branches. So I'm making this part of the branch positive. And the negative space behind, which is the sky, is going to be the negative space. So here I'm doing like a counter. It's like a counter change. It's like dark against light and light against dark. And in a lot of arts has that there because it makes a more interesting shape when you put the light against the dark. I come up here and when I get to the top of the foliage, then I stop shading in. One more, I'll just continue this up here, and I'll stop at the edge of the foliage. Blacken that blank. I leave that part there. Now as I come down here, I'm going to go ahead now this part here, I'm going to make this tree behind this building. I'm going to make it a positive shape. I'm going to leave the negative shape now on the trunk. I'm going to leave that as negative. So here I'm going back negative, positive, negative again. So now I'm darkening this tree behind this building. And I'm going to leave a lot of the building light or negative space. So now I'm treating this little tree area back here behind this building. I'm treating this as a positive space. And I'm going to leave the building. Now I'm going to put a little shadow on this one. I'm going to leave this part of the building. Light coming this way. I could have this as the shadow side of the building. Over here, and as I come down, I make this part here the shadow side of the building, leaving the door as a negative space. So as I work around the drawing, I'm making decisions on what I'm leaving as positive and negative. This little tree line here. Now, as I go behind the fence line here, I'm going to leave the fence itself as a negative space, and I'm going to draw behind as positive. I'm going to put dark behind the fence line. Again, that defines the fence with a positive and a negative space. Okay, then I can put these little markers here. These are little posts that are in this bulkhead here, which holds the waterway. This is the edge of the waterway here. Very important bulkhead here to keep the water from getting outside the basin. Okay, and over here is I'm going to put in what I want to do now. I'm going to leave this building white, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some lines in here on the rooftop. I'm going to make this rooftop a little bit interesting. I'm going to make it I'm going to shade in this side over here, and I'll shade in this side over here, just to make a different mark. And then the windows, I'm going to take a pencil and shade in the doorway with a pencil color, just to make it a little different mark. And then the tree line, as I come down here, I'm going to, as it comes next to this white building, I'm going to put in some dark edges here on the building, or on the tree. So I'm making a more positive shape here now next to the building. So the building is negative space. Even the water here I'm making is negative space. Put a few marks in here for the trunks. I'll leave the water white also. And the grass, again, I don't want too much detail going on down here. Just leaving a couple little areas down here to mark a little grass. And I can put some marks here. Just make this look like water moving or something like this. Just making straight marks, indicating a little bit of direction and so forth. Okay, so what I can do now is I want to go back now and just do a little bit of touch up. Now this bush here, I got part of it dark, and I can make part of it light. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of dark here. So here's another interesting thing that can happen. You can have a dark next to light and a light next to dark. So I'm going to go ahead and make part of this. This could be a bush behind the building and another bush behind this bush. So I'm making a little difference here between the shapes here. To make it light against the building.
We have a question on the tip of the felt tip that you're using. Is that?
It's really fine. There's different thicknesses of the Sharpies. This happens to be a fine point, extra fine, which is okay for drawing. It's not very good for shading in because it takes a lot of extra marks to do that. So what I'm going to do now, up here at the top, there's a few loose branches up here at the top of the tree. So I'm going to add those in. I can add those in for a little bit of interest here, also to break up the outline of the foliage a little bit. So I'm using using parts of the photograph here to add in a little more interest, a little more definition maybe. And I can come down here and do maybe add an extra branch out here somewhere on the edge of the tree. In other words, I can make instead of making this look so static here, just marks, I can go in and add in other shapes on top of this. And maybe I'll have one down here, down this way. Okay. So you don't want to get too carried away with that, but let's review here now very quickly. First of all, I sized off the shape and put it down on my paper. I did a quick outline of the limbs, got those situated, and the sizes and so forth. Then I went and started shading. My decision was to make the foliage, after I did an outline, I did a rough outline of the foliage around the tree, using the outline of the shape I saw here. And then I went in with a dark pen, in this case a Sharpie, and I went in and darkened in the foliage as a positive shape. And I left the branches, which were on top, which were next to the foliage, I left that as a negative space in the white. And as I came down into this space area here, I made the branches positive with a darker mark and left the sky behind. I left that as a negative shape. And as I came down, I picked up the tree line behind this little building, and I made that a positive shape. I made this part of the tree a negative shape. The building itself is white, so I left that to be negative. I made a positive shape on the tree trunk itself, and then I made some marks down here for the grass and so forth. Okay, so that's how I would draw in. How to draw a tree is get the general shape, get the proportion, how wide is it, how tall is it, and then locate the branches. Get the main branches where they're located. Get those on the paper. And then you can decide how you're going to shade it in. How you're going to, if you're going to make it a positive, negative shape, or darken the lights. This happens to be one example of shading in different parts of the tree, the foliage, and the branches. There was also an exercise in positive and negative spaces. That was the real subject for the lesson tonight, was to draw in overall shape and also to identify the positive and negative spaces of the drawing. And I can make this any way I wanted to. I could have made this space the negative and this space and make the other side the positive. That's the choice of the artist. So, that's the end of my lesson tonight, and let me go ahead and bring into the positive. Let me bring into the main get back to the main camera. Okay, well tonight's demonstration was drawing positive and negative spaces, and I chose a tree as my subject matter. I love trees. I love to draw trees, and if you haven't drawn many for yourself, I think drawing trees is a very good drawing exercise. You go out like I did. I took a picture. I took a photograph of a nice tree. It had a good structure to it. Had a lot of branches to it. It was also large, and it had open space to it. So it was an ideal subject there for me to draw for this particular demonstration. And then as I shaded it in, I shaded in the dark and the lights around the tree to demonstrate how you would do a positive negative space. And that's up to the artist how you want to draw it in or how you want to shade it in. So this was when you go out to look at a tree or any subject matter, take your sketchbook with you and do some sketching. And this is a quick sketch for you to do, okay? Now let me just show you something here. I can take this and I can put a little mat board around it. Let me get this out of the way. I can put my drawing down here, and I can put a little mat board around it, and I can sign this. Oh, thank you, Gloria. I forgot to put the other camera on. Okay, you can put a little mat board around it, and this turns into a nice little drawing. And you can sign this and then mount it and hang it on the wall as a piece of art. Okay. Now this is what I did. Now I'll talk about sketchbooks. This is a sketchbook I have. I do the sketchbook here. I take my visual journal when I go outside, the visual journal for mixed media. And what I did here was I did a drawing of that when I was on location. I did a drawing of this particular tree, and this is what I did on location, sitting there looking at the tree. Okay. Then I came back here and I drew it up here as an example here for the exercise tonight. So I'll be back again next week at 7:30 p.m. Next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm also on live at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I do watercolor paintings demonstrations. So you're welcome to come back to both of those. So in the meantime, happy drawing. I hope you get outside and do some sketching, and also do some positive and negative spaces, and then shade them in positively and negatively, and it's a lot of fun.
And post on Facebook.
And when you do that, you can post it on Facebook. I have a link in the description below. You go to my Everetts Watercolors art page, and you can post your drawing on there, and let me take a look at it. So you're welcome to do that. So I'll see you next week at 7:30 or at 2 p.m. Next week on my watercolor class. So I'll see you then, and bye for now.